is Lady Lex UK and this is a Dreams tutorial. This is part 3 of my inventory system demo. Previously we went through some simple picking up of objects, and then we went to being able to equip and unequip objects, but we only had 2 objects and we could use just a swap system. But as soon as you want to add more objects into your world, that's not going to work, and you're going to need some sort of menu. So what I've decided to build, and I made it complicated for myself, was an ordered list. An ordered list inventory, which allows you to select the objects and equip what you need to equip. I also set it so that if you used an item, then the items on that list would then reorder themselves to move up and remove the missing item, so everything would move up and the item would be removed from the list. So with that in mind, it has taken me quite a while to get this to work. The gadgetry I've used is not overly complicated, but there are many processes, so if you are a beginner to Dreams, this might be a little bit of a step too far. If you've followed the other inventory tutorials and they were fine for you, then this is the next stage. I'll try and explain it. I can't show you the build of this step by step like I would normally do with a tutorial, because there's so many complicated processes, and it's very easy to get these wrong. You get one wire out of place and the whole thing doesn't work, and so it's going to be a bit hard for me to actually do that in a tutorial. So I'm going to have to go through what I've built step by step, just by explaining each of the wires and each of the gadgets, etc., rather than building it. So I apologise if you were hoping that I was going to do it step by step and build it, but this will be available to you in the Dreamweverse. I've kept them all separate. They're all remixes of each other. So the demo 1 and demo 2 are still available in the Dreamweverse as separate things. So if this is too complicated for you, you can always go back to the previous ones. Right, let's see what I built. So here is our player. I've got some instructions here. Press the touchpad for the menu. There's our menu here. Put L1 to put items away when you're not in the inventory menu. So if you've seen our previous tutorial, then you recognize this. There is our sword, and there is our key, and there is the door that the key opens. We've got an extra object. This is our bag. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up the sword, and then I'm going to pick up my key. Now, as you remember from the last one, if your hands are full, you cannot pick anything up, so you have to put the sword away. I've got it so it goes on his back, and I'm going to pick up the key. Now, previously we had the key appear on his belt. I've changed that now so it goes into an inventory. So you know, when you pick up an item, it disappears and goes into some sort of ether. Quite often these puppets in the game, they manage to pick up all sorts of things that you couldn't possibly get into a backpack, but they still manage to do it as they keep collecting stuff, thousands and thousands of coins, etc. It's not realistic, but it is game logic. Okay, so here's my key. I'm going to put that away. There we are, it's gone. And then I'm going to my bag. I'm going to pick that up. And I've got a bag, and I'm going to put that into my inventory as well. So let's have a look at our menu. So you can see now in the order that I picked them up, we have sword, key, and bag. Now I haven't made this pretty. You would you'd design some nice UI for this. I've just done it very basic. I can move up and down with the D-pad to select the object I want. And if I want to equip it, I press L2, and you'll see that the object goes red in the list, so I know which item is already equipped, like so. Now, if you see over in the corner there, you can see my bag. Now, this is my inventory tag is here, and this is where my objects are. Now, you would hide this somewhere in the levels. You'd put it inside a mountain or underneath a level or inside a box or something, so that the player can't get at it. So put it somewhere well away. Don't have it so it's floating in the air. The objects might drop through. So have them on some sort of ledge or something. This is just so that these objects have somewhere to go, and I'm not having to destroy them and then re-emit them and things like that, which is what some other people have done with inventory systems. You pick it up, it's destroyed, and then if you want to use it or drop it or whatever, then you emit a new one. I've not done that. I've just used a teleporter to teleport it away into an inventory area. So if I equip my key now and then equip my bag, there we go. You see the key is deposited in the inventory area and the bag is now in my hand. If I now equip the sword, the bag goes in that area as well, and the key and the bag are still there. Okay, so that's how that works. So if I equip my key and I go and use the door, the key disappears. You notice the bag moved up into position, and now I only have 2 rather than 3 options. So this adjusts itself so that you can use items up and they will be removed from the list, and you don't get a gap. They all reassert themselves. Right then, let's have a look and see how this has all been built. Okay, so if you've seen this tutorial before, then some of this is familiar, but I have added extra things. The first thing that we need to see is our microchip for our objects. We've added an extra gadget. This is a variable modifier for a variable called inventory. What this is doing is adding 1 at the time when you pick up the object. So that variable is housed in our master microchip. There it is there, inventory. I haven't changed any of these numbers, but it probably be a good idea to start this at 0. It's just a bog standard variable. There's nothing special about that. Now, but what that does is it gives us a count of every object we've picked up. So when we've picked up all 3 items, this will be a number 3. So it just counts how many objects I've picked up. And we're going to use that number to give our objects a list position. So we know at what point it was picked up, because what we do is we grab the number as it was when we picked up the object. We grab the inventory count, and that gives us a number for where it's going to be in our list. Right, so let's actually, I'll keep that open. Let's have a look. We'll close that one. At our new bag. Now you'll notice we've got 3 microchips. This is our master microchip, just to keep this nice and tidy. So that's the sword one, that's the key one, this is the bag one. Always name your microchips, it makes it much easier to find things later on. So I'm going to open up the bag, which is our new object, and we're going to see what sort of code is in here. Now, the code for each of these objects is relatively the same processes. As you can see, some of these are slightly bigger microchips than others. That's because the sword doesn't have a drop or use option. So it's a much simpler microchip. But if I open it up, you'll see it still has quite a lot of the same processes as this one. Right, here is our bag. Now from previously, you will recognize a lot of this already. This hasn't changed. So we have our bag variable. This is telling us the status of our bag. We've got a remote controlled sensor, which is linked to the L1 button. This has got a node attached to it now, which it didn't have before. So this L1 button is going into this node, like so, and we are checking to see if the menu is open. If the menu is open, then it is not open, then this node is not powered on. So this will only work, the L1 button will only work if the menu is not on. So you can't press the L1 button while you're in the menu and unequip things. So we want to make it simple. So we've turned that off. So that's what that node is doing. It's acting as a gate to stop the controller sensor being used when the menu is open. Here we have our outputs, and most of it is the same, except I've added some transmitters. So B is the status of being equipped. So this is just saying that the variable modifier, in case you selected B from elsewhere, just making sure that the variable modifier is a 1. And this status is 1, let's say it's equipped. So here is our transmitter saying our bag is equipped, and that's wired directly into signal. So when we get to B, it's going to send a signal to this transmitter. This transmitter is then going to send a signal out to a receiver to say, I am equipped. And we have a microchip in the master that uses that transmitter. So we've got bag equipped here. And what I'm doing is I'm looking to see if any of these objects are equipped. They've all got their own transmitters, and this is going to an XOR gate to say if none of these are equipped, then none equipped status is this transmitter is then activated. And we're going to use that when we're equipping things in our list. Right, so we've added some transmitters. We've got another one for being used. And we've got our teleporter. So we're teleporting the bag into our hand when it's at status B and equipped. And we've got teleporter into inventory, which is status C. And then you can see that that's our tag over there. There it is. So this is where we're going to put that somewhere else so we can't see it. And then everything else is pretty much... we've got a variable modifier here that sets that to 0 when it's not picked up. Right, invoice, no bag. This is a variable that tells you, I keep saying invoice, that's because INV is invoice. Inventory number. This is the bag's inventory number, the list number. And the way this is being set is with this variable modifier here. And this is set when you first pick up your object. So we've got a link from B into this counter, which then powers on our variable modifier. And what this is looking for, if you see there's a wire there, it's looking for the current inventory number. And then it's setting our inventory no bag, inventory number for the bag, to be the number of items that we've currently picked up. So that sets that. We've got a calculator here that says, is that number greater than 0? So if it's 0, then this has not been picked up. And then we've got a calculator here, and this is dividing the number by 10, so we can use it in our timeline. And this timeline is placing our object text displayer in the right position for when they picked it up. And the way it does this, here is our timeline. If I open up our inventory list, okay, here is our inventory microchip. If I just highlight this keyframe, you'll see this is the text displayer that it's affecting, and that says bag. So we just select bag like that. If I slide this timeline along, you can see the position of the word on the page changes. So if you have 10 positions and you have the 10th position here and the first position here, so this naught, this the 0 position is when is where the bag text will be when it's not displayed, and then once it gets to 1, that's what the first position in our inventory there. So this is being fed, this number here, that divided by 10 number, is being fed into the playhead. So if it's position 3, the playhead will be here, which will put that bag in the position 3 slot. So that's how this works. So the position of that bag timeline it will be determined by the inventory number of the object. There we go. That's how that works. And here is our inventory list. So first of all, we've got a controller sensor matched up to a touchpad button. This is a toggle, signal manipulator toggle. So there's a toggle on there. So this is what happens when the menu is on. There's a lot of wires coming out of this because we don't want things to be working unless the menu is on. So we've got some nodes here. I could have done this with transmitters, had a lot of transmitters. I've done it with wires, but you could use transmitters and receivers to do this. But this is wired to that gadget in each object, the calculator, to say, have I been picked up? And so we've got one that's for the key, one for the sword, and one for the bag. And these go into an AND gate. So we're checking to see if the key is collected and the menu is on. And then it will display the text. So let me just take off that text. There's the key. So that is the text for key. And that will be displayed, and the position of that will be determined by its invoice number. Then we've got some text here that's displayed only when the menu is on, and we've also got a NOT gate here, and this is the text that is displayed when the menu is off. So there we go. Right, down here is the arrow position, and this is a variable, and the maximum value of this variable is going to be that of the inventory number. So the inventory number in our master, that's wired into the maximum value. So at the moment it starts off as an initial value of 1, because the arrow position is at position 1 to start with, and it uses the same method as the objects. So we've got a timeline, and the arrow this time, if we can find the arrow, where's the arrow text? Arrow, sword. Where is the arrow? There we go. There's our text displayer for the arrow. Yeah, that's only displayed when the menu is on. So if we click that, here is our timeline for the arrow. Looks exactly the same as the objects. But this is controlled by the D-pad, and so we have a variable modifier, and one goes up and one goes down. So this is plus minus 1, so that's going down. That's the down arrow, and that's the up arrow. There we go, plus 1. So the up button is wired to that one, and the down button is wired to that one. And that changes this number, which changes the position of the arrow on here. So there is that. Now, so that position of all the objects in the inventory is controlled with their timelines and their inventory numbers. Now, what about equipping? So we've got one microchip for each of our objects. So what this is doing is the arrow position is checked against the inventory number of the sword. So I'm checking to see, is the arrow position the same number as the sword inventory number. Therefore, the arrow's pointing at the sword. If that's true, and we've got an AND gate here, we're then looking to see, is the menu on, and has L2 been pressed? So here is our controller sensor. I could have used this one up here as well, but I put in another one, so I had them separated. So it's looking to see, is the L2 button. So I've wired those into some nodes to make it a little tidy. So menu on and L2 pressed. Both those are true. The sword and the arrow in the same position. And then we're looking to see what if the key is equipped and we press the button over the sword, then what happens is the sword variable modifier is changed to a 1, equipping the sword, and the key is turned to 2, putting it back into the inventory. Then we're looking to see if none is equipped, then we just do the sword. And then we look in, if the bag is equipped, then we do the bag and the sword. So you have to do this for every single object that could be equipped. And then it goes through like this and changes the status of the objects. And you do that for every single object. So here is the one for the key. So it's checking to see, is the key position the same as the arrow? If the sword is equipped, then we change the sword and the key. If none is equipped, we just change the key. If the bag is equipped, we change the key and the bag. So that's exactly the same for every single one. Right, now using an item and removing it from the inventory list. I've only done this for the key. So if we go into the key microchip, I've got an extra microchip in here. So this is now looking to see if it's received key used. There's the key used there. It's in status D for the key. So we've used it in the door. I've got a little timer here. This is going to change the inventory number of that key back to 0 to say do not display it. But I don't want it to do it straight away because I want to capture the inventory number of that key first. So here's the previous key inventory number here as a variable, and here we can see we're going to set that to what the inventory key number is, and we want to do that at the point of setting this off. So as soon as the key is used, I want to do that, and then there's a little delay, and then we change that back to a 0 because I don't want to. If I hadn't got that little delay in, then it's just going to put 0 in here, which is not what we want. We want the number. Then we've got to change the inventory because we've got to take 1 away from that inventory number because we've got 1 less in the inventory. So does that. Then we've got a calculator here, and we've got we're looking at the sword invoice number. So this is the sword invoice number in here, and we're saying, is this number less than the number of the sword invoice number? If it is, then the sword's number needs to be reduced. The invoice number of that sword needs to be reduced. And we do the same with the bag. So if the bag was picked up was picked up after the key, then it needs to move up in the list. So it's going to change the number. So you have to do that for every single object. Now, this inventory system is limited to 10 objects. So you'd only have to do this 10 times maximum. I know this isn't the ideal situation for a game where you've got lots and lots of things that you can pick up. but it can only handle 10 because of the selector. You can chain selectors together. It gets a lot complicated to do that, but you can do that. But to make things simple for yourself, I recommend you probably stick with the 10 limit. And I think that is it. That is all the processes. And as you can see, there's lots and lots and lots of wires. There's lots of ways that this could break down and not work. You can accidentally unwire stuff and everything. So although I've wired everything, you might want to use transmitters and receivers so that you don't have quite so many wires going in and out of microchips. And it works exactly the same. It's all the same methods. As long as the processes are correct, it doesn't matter whether you use wires or transmitters. So there we are. There is our inventory system. And every time you put down an object, a new object, you can copy the microchip. It saves you a lot of bother, though realise that you need to rejig all of the teleporters so that they are teleporting the correct object. The timelines will need to be done so that they are moving the correct text. And all of the external wires that you've got in here will all disappear when you clone your microchip. So you've got to make sure you've rewired everything back up that needs wiring. So this is why making microchips takes so long, because external wires get chopped, and quite often it's difficult to see what you've lost. You don't know that there's a wire missing, and then it's not working and you can't work out why. It's because when you clone a microchip, so let me just clone this microchip like that. See, all of those external wires here, they've all gone. Everything in and out of this microchip is gone. So you'd have to rewire everything. So sometimes it's probably better to even just start from scratch. It's entirely up to you which way you do that. As long as you've got a format. And the more you add, the easier it will get for you as you get used to adding things in and knowing I've got to do this, then this, then this, then this. But it's very time consuming, and there's no other way around it, I don't think, unless Media Molecule builds us a nice inventory system and programmers, and they build us something nice that we can use. It's just a plug and play thing. This sort of complicated system is going to have to be created by individuals, I'm afraid. And it is a complex thing, and I do apologise because I'm sure people looking at this and going, "It's beyond me. I can't do it. I'm really disappointed. I was hoping to have an inventory in my game, and I just don't understand what you're doing, and I don't understand it. And I've tried to build it. It just doesn't work." I'm going to get a lot of comments saying, "I tried to build it. I did exactly what you did, and it didn't work." Now I get these comments all the time at the moment for much simpler logic, so I daren't think what would happen with this one, but we'll see. Let me just say now, I can't help you. If you've built it exactly as I have done here, it will work, and that's it. That's the bottom line. So if it doesn't work, you've done something wrong, and that's it. And I can't tell you what you've done wrong because I have no idea. I can't see your wiring system, and even if I was to go in to your level and be faced with all of these wires and all of this, I'm not going to be able to find it. It could take me days to find your bug, your problem. So it really is up to you to determine how things are broken and how they're not working. Use text displayers and number displayers to see which wires are working, which gadget is powered, which gadget is not powered, whether that you're getting the correct numbers and things like that. Use lots of number displayers and text displayers to see what's working, and get used to doing that. Also, please get used to naming your microchips and giving them unique names so that you know what it is that it is trying to do. Otherwise, you're going to get yourself in a muddle. It's just a lot of anonymous microchips. You are going to get so lost so quickly. So please name everything. That will help. And colouring things is also a very useful thing to be doing. I should have coloured these in different colours so that I know the sword is always blue or something. But, you know, it's entirely up to you how you reorganise this. Now, this is going to be available. It's in the Dreamverse. I will put a link in the description, so you can play about with this to your heart's content, see how everything works. You could even use this in your game, though. I doubt if it's not exactly a plug and play solution, like I said. So changing the objects is a little. You could use these and put your own objects in, obviously with your own microchips, but you need to know what you're doing. And like I say, if you're a beginner, this is not somewhere to go. So thanks for watching. Hope that was useful, and I'll catch you in your dreams.